Welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Japan's Naomi Osaka has surpassed Serena Williams as the world's highest paid female athlete, raking in $37.4 million in prize money and endorsements over the last year. According to Forbes, the 22-year-old and two-time Grand Slam champion's total is the most ever earned by a female athlete in a 12-month period. She earned $1.4 million more than American Serena Williams, who has topped the list for the last 4 years. Osaka burst into the limelight by beating Williams in the 2018 US Open Final, a highly controversial match in which Williams was given 3 code violations by the umpire. The Japanese then won the next Grand Slam, the 2019 Australian Open, although her form has dipped since then, and she has fallen from world number 1 to 10th on the WTA rankings. After a 2-month hiatus, Repsol Honda teammates and brothers Marc and Alex Marquez were back at it as they hit the Circuit El Bosquet in Ponce, Spain on motocross bikes as social distancing measures have slowly been relaxed in Spain. The elder brother said he was a bit nervous at the start of his run after having not been on a bike for such an extended period of time. The brothers said it felt good to suit up again, adding that they were glad life seemed to be slowly returning to normal as the world continues to come to grips with the COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdown measures have meant the start of the MotoGP season has been delayed since March and has yet to begin. MotoGP intends to open the season with 2 races on successive weekends on July the 19th and 26th without spectators at the Jerez circuit in southern Spain. The NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said the alliance envoys' last week meeting in response to the U.S. announcement to withdraw from the Open Skies Treaty agreed on the importance of arms control and on the need to bring Russia back into compliance. Secretary-General Stoltenberg said that for many years Russia had imposed flight restrictions inconsistent with the treaty, including flight limitations over Kaliningrad and restricting flights in Russia near its border with Georgia. Stoltenberg said in a video statement after the meeting of ambassadors to the Brussels-based alliance, Russia's ongoing selective implementation has undermined the Open Skies Treaty. He also noted that Washington would reconsider its withdrawal if Russia respected the treaty's terms and said NATO allies were engaging with Moscow to seek its early return to compliance. An Airbus plane with 99 on board crashed into a residential area of the Pakistani city Karachi while on approach to the airport, with 2 passengers surviving but many others feared dead. According to Pakistan International Airlines, or PIA, the black box was found at the crash site in the southern Pakistani city of Karachi. PIA CEO, Air Vice Marshal Arshad Malik, said the jet went down in a residential area, but the plane did not hit any buildings and no one on the ground appears to have been killed. A powerful cyclone has left a village in Bangladesh's southwestern Saktira district flooded after part of a water embankment broke. Officials said the super cyclone Amphan barreled in from the Bay of Bengal last week. A storm surge of around 5 meters caused flooding across low-lying coastal areas in eastern India and Bangladesh, killing at least 82 people. Authorities in both countries managed to evacuate more than 3 million people to storm shelters before Amphan struck, but the effort was focused on communities that lay directly in the cyclone's path, leaving villages on the flanks still vulnerable. In Bangladesh, the initial death toll was put at 10. Have agreed cost-cutting measures, including a budget cap of $145 million for 2021. The measures have yet to be approved officially by the governing FIA's World Motorsport Council by an e-vote due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but that it is seen as a formality and likely will be approved next week. Formula One's managing director for motorsport, Ross Brawn, said this month that the $145 million figure had been agreed and the sport would look for further reductions in future seasons. The budget cap, which does not include driver salaries, has been set initially at $175 million, but some teams had wanted a more drastic limit closer to $100 million to ensure the sport survives the crisis. Formula One's season has yet to start, with the first 10 races postponed or cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With professional tennis shut down by the COVID-19 pandemic, world number one Novak Djokovic is bringing together some of the world's top tennis players for a series of matches to run from June the 13th to July 5th in the Balkan region. All pro tennis tours were suspended in early March and will not return before August as countries went into lockdown and closed borders to contain the spread of the virus. Some players, including Djokovic, have returned to practice courts while maintaining strict hygiene and social distancing norms, and some exhibition events without fans have also been held in countries like Germany and the United States. Djokovic, who won his 17th Grand Slam title at the 2020 Australian Open, has been 18-0 this year in all matches. He lifted the ATP Cup with Serbia, won an 8th Australian Open title, and then completed a 5th triumph at the Dubai Tennis Championship, extending his unbeaten run to 21 matches dating back to last season. Around 200 people in Frankfurt, Germany's financial center, protested outside of the European Central Bank against COVID-19 restrictions last week. Although restrictions have been eased in the country, the protesters argued that their implementation was a violation of constitutional rights. The protest took place on the same day that the head of Frankfurt's health department told a news agency that more than 40 people have tested positive for COVID-19 following a church service in the city. Germany has withstood the pandemic much better than other countries, partially thanks to widespread virus testing, an excellent healthcare system, and strict lockdown measures introduced in mid-March. The country already began easing its lockdown earlier this month, with playgrounds, museums, shops, and restaurants now open. Thailand began testing the mRNA, or messenger RNA vaccine, against the COVID-19 on primates last week after successful trials in mice. Thailand's Minister of Higher Education, Science and Research and Innovation, Suvutme Sinsi, said after the testing on mice, researchers have moved to trial the vaccine on non-human primates. There are 3 doses altogether, and a clear outcome is expected in September. The minister added that concurrently, Thailand has started reserving 2 vaccine manufacturers, as more than 100 potential vaccines for COVID-19 are being developed, including several in clinical trials. Messenger RNA prompts body cells to produce so-called antigens, molecules on the surface of viruses that spur the immune system into action. The vaccine is being developed by the National Vaccine Institute, the Department of Medical Science, and Chulalongkorn University's Vaccine Research Center. As Italy eases its lockdown measures, the picturesque Amalfi Coast remained empty, waiting for visitors to arrive. The COVID-19 pandemic brought major changes in global tourism, where social distancing and hygiene will be a priority. Italy, one of the countries hardest hit by the pandemic, began easing restrictions, but Italians are still not allowed to travel outside their regions, and foreign travel has ground to a halt. The Italian government has allowed for individual regions to choose the date that beaches can be open to the public again, but Campania, where the Amalfi Coast falls under, is still waiting. Italy is heavily dependent on tourism, which accounts for 13% of GDP and employs around 13% of the country's total workforce. It has been hit hard by the pandemic, which forced borders to close, restaurants and hotels to shut, and airlines to ground flights. According to think tank Nomasima, around 500,000 summer jobs could be at risk this year due to the fallout from the virus, while 100 billion euros could be lost as holiday makers stay away. On May 23rd, US President Donald Trump went on his first golf outing since the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, visiting his club in the Washington suburbs in a purposeful display of normalcy. That was the same weekend when he met at his Mar-a-Lago retreat with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, whose press secretary later tested positive for the virus. Some White House staffers who had been in contact with the press aide went into quarantine afterward, but none have tested positive. President Trump is eager to promote the idea that the United States is returning to normal, although the death toll from the COVID-19 outbreak continues to rise and has recently surpassed 100,000. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro greeted anti-lockdown protesters after his country passed 340,000 cases of COVID-19, and Brazil became the number 2 hotspot in the world for COVID-19 cases. In a video supplied by his office, President Bolsonaro was seen arriving at Ministries Esplanade in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, wearing a face mask, which he later removed as he mixed with supporters. Bolsonaro has been widely criticized for his handling of the outbreak and is at the center of a deepening political crisis. Audi Sport's Daniel Abt was fined and disqualified from a Formula E virtual race last Sunday for sporting misconduct after letting a professional gamer race as a ringer for him. A Formula E spokesperson said the German was also stripped of all points won to date in the Race at Home challenge and will make a compulsory donation of 10,000 euros to a charity of his choice. Abt apologized to the sport, fans, his team, and fellow drivers for having called in outside help and accepted the punishment. Saturday's 15-lap race around a virtual Berlin Tempelhof track was won by Britain's Oliver Rowland for Nissan Idams, with Belgian Stoffel van Doorn second for Mercedes. Abt, who had not featured on the virtual podium in any of the previous races, did not appear for online post-race interviews. Muslims across the Middle East are experiencing an unprecedented Eid al-Fitr, where some of the region's major cities, usually overflowing with people, are now deserted under government-imposed lockdowns aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19. In Egypt, the country's annual tradition of assembling in mosques and streets for Eid prayers has been banned to avoid infection. Eid prayers were instead performed in one mosque with a limited number of worshippers and aired on national television. In the West Bank, the Palestinian authorities imposed a lockdown, confining citizens to their homes from Friday night, May the 22nd, to Monday night, May the 25th, experiencing what one resident called the strangest Eid atmosphere ever witnessed. Other cities, including Riyadh, Dubai, Amman, and Damascus, are witnessing similar atmospheres where streets are deserted, mosques are closed, and families asked to stay at home during the annual occasion. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's Grand Mosque in Mecca was almost emptied during the annual Eid al-Fitr prayers last Sunday, as authorities imposed an unprecedented restriction on public gatherings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A small number of worshippers attended prayers to mark Eid al-Fitr, the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Saudi officials earlier said mosques would remain closed for the holiday and urged Muslims to hold Eid prayers at home. The United States announced that it is prohibiting foreigners from traveling to the US. They had been in Brazil in the last 2 weeks, 2 days after the South American nation became the world #2 hotspot for COVID-19 cases. A White House press secretary said the new restrictions would help ensure foreign nationals do not bring additional infections to the US. The spokesperson added that this would not apply to the flow of commerce between the two countries. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he is pushing to reopen schools in June to get kids back in classrooms and free up their parents to jumpstart Britain's economy. Johnson added that he is running into surprisingly steep resistance. He reaffirmed his plan that primary schools in England should open in a week at a news conference Sunday evening. The Prime Minister acknowledged that it might not be possible for all schools and promised more cleaning of surfaces, more social distancing between first graders, and more use of outdoor space, as well as more virus screening for students and teachers. More than 4/5 of publicly listed companies that received emergency small business loans from the US government have held on to them. According to data from market research firm FactSquared, 68 companies returned $435.8 million in loans out of a total of 424 public companies that were granted loans totaling $1.35 billion based on a review of corporate filings as of May 22nd. Companies that should not have applied for the loans because they had enough resources to get by on their own had until May the 18th to return the money without facing any sanctions. Golf great Tiger Woods and former NFL legend Peyton Manning beat Phil Mickelson and NFL quarterback Tom Brady in a charity golf match for COVID-19 relief efforts in the United States. The goal was to raise at least $10 million for COVID-19 relief funds. Moreover, online donations reached a final figure of $20 million. The event was played between 4 of America's biggest sports stars at a Rainy Meadows Golf Club in Florida, with no caddies and players driving their own golf buggies. Additionally, Rory McIlroy also aided the charity by holding a £4 million skins event involving Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, and Matthew Wolff. Italy saw off Serbia in the grand finals to be crowned UEFA E-Euro 2020 champions in the inaugural E-European Championship. Represented by gamers Alonso Greyfox, Naples 17X, Nicaldin, and Genoa_NPK02, Italy took the best of 5 final matches 3-1, having earlier seen off Israel and France in the quarter and semi-finals respectively. The 4-man team walked away with the €40,000 winner's check in the biggest ever national team e-football tournament, which was represented by all 55 UEFA national associations from qualifying. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the WHO has suspended testing the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine in COVID-19 patients due to safety concerns. The WHO has previously recommended against using hydroxychloroquine to treat or prevent COVID-19 infections except as part of clinical trials. Speaking alongside Tedros, head of the WHO Emergencies Program, Mike Ryan, said that countries had to work to ensure there was no immediate second peak of the virus. Ryan added that countries would have to put in place comprehensive strategies to ensure a downward trajectory of cases of COVID-19. Serbia's Novak Djokovic marked his return home by announcing that he has organized an event that will be held across the Balkans. Djokovic, who went on an 18-0 run at the start of the season, confirmed Dominic Thiem, Grigor Dimitrov, and Alexander Zverev would be participating at the June 13th to July 5th tournament. The first leg will take place on red clay in Belgrade on June 13th and 14th at Djokovic's complex, and the second in Croatia's coastal resort Zadar on June 20th and 21st. Djokovic added that sets would be slashed to winning 4 games instead of 6, with a total of 13 matches to be played over 2 days in each leg. President Vladimir Putin made a rare lockdown appearance in the Kremlin after officials said improvements in the COVID-19 situation may allow Russia to reopen some tourist resorts soon and relax restrictions in many regions. Russia, which has reported the world's 3rd most COVID-19 cases, confirming 8,900 new infections, bringing its nationwide tally to over 350,000. Officials reported 92 new deaths, pushing the toll to 3,633 at the time of this recording. Moscow is entering its 9th week of lockdown, as Mayor Sergei Sobyanin has said it is too early to lift restrictions, but allowed state registry offices to open in the capital. Russia's borders remain closed, as are schools and most non-essential shops, but Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin urged Russians not to travel abroad on holiday this summer. Mishustin used a televised government meeting to say licensed sanatoriums would reopen on June the 1st, and tourist resorts could open fully when the situation returns to normal. On Monday, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that thousands of high street shops, department stores, and shopping centers will reopen next month, setting out a timetable for businesses as part of moves to ease the COVID-19 lockdown. Speaking at a news conference, Prime Minister Johnson said that from June the 1st, outdoor markets and car showrooms could be reopened as soon as they are able to meet the COVID-19 secure guidelines, and all other non-essential retails from June 15th if the government's tests are met. The French Foreign Minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, repeated a warning about potential responses to Israel's announced plan to annex occupied Palestinian territory in the West Bank. The foreign minister told Parliament that the French government had urged Israel not to take such measures, which are illegal under international law and have drawn criticism from the European Union. The minister repeated his earlier call made on May the 19th, when he urged Israel to refrain from unilateral measures that would further scuttle the hopes for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier pledged to annex parts of the occupied West Bank in the coming months, vowing to move ahead with the explosive plan despite a growing chorus of condemnations by key allies. U.S. President Donald Trump renewed his desire for a full military withdrawal from Afghanistan, but added that he had not yet set a target date. President Trump's comments come as authorities in Afghanistan released around 900 Taliban prisoners across the country. The U.S. has already begun to withdraw its forces as part of an agreement signed with the Taliban in the Qatari capital Doha on February 29th. By the second quarter of 2021, all foreign forces are supposed to withdraw, ending the U.S.'s longest war. Boeing Corporate is expected to announce U.S. job cuts this week after disclosing last month it planned to shed 10% of its worldwide workforce of 160,000 employees. A spokesman for the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, a union that represents 17,600 Boeing employees, said that the company informed the union it should expect layoff notices. Boeing Chief Executive Dave Calhoun said the company had begun acting to lower the number of employees by roughly 10% through a combination of voluntary layoffs, natural turnover, and involuntary layoffs as necessary. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe lifted a state of emergency in the Tokyo metropolitan area and Hokkaido, as the spread of COVID-19 in these areas is now under control, ending the emergency in all of the country's 47 prefectures. Most malls and department stores in the Japanese capital have resumed business, but with shortened opening hours. Customers are also required to wear face masks, apply hand sanitizers, and take body temperature checks before entering. As economic activities are gradually resuming, the government is calling for residents to practice social distancing and take precautions when going out. Hong Kong riot police fired rubber pellets to disperse protesters in the heart of the global financial center, as the new national security laws proposed by Beijing revived anti-government demonstrations. The protest comes as lawmakers began deliberating a new bill inside the Legislative Council. The new bill is set for a second reading and is expected to be turned into law next month. Chinese authorities and the Beijing-backed government in Hong Kong said there is no threat to the city's high degree of autonomy, and the new security laws will be tightly focused. That's it for tonight. Join us again next week for more weekly news highlights.